Boker Tov. Today's daf is daf Samach Beis in Baba Basra. We learn for Achenu Kol Beis Yisrael and Usurim Batzar V'Shivya, and we're certainly going through a rough time. We should have our feelings for all of Bnei Yisrael. Today's daf Samach Beis from the top of the page. Again, we were discussing yesterday. We started the parak yesterday about what is included and what's not included when you sell an apartment or a dwelling, and we talked about different rooms, and we talked about fields. What's included, what's not included when you talk about in a stretch of fields, a stretch of fields, what are we talking about? So obviously, again, with lawyers today, and they write everything and everything is clearly demarcated and delineated, fine. But what about when it's not so clear? So usually the way things were defined, and some places they're still defined that way today, a house that borders on this street and that street and this street and that street, streets can change also. So what they would do in those days was they would delineate by, okay, this field borders on, let's say there's 4 fields around it. Then it's a square or rectangular field. And Reuben's field is on one side, Shimon's on another, Levi's on another, Yehuda's on another. So that defines the field. Very good. I have a field. I'm selling it to you. What are the boundaries of the field that I'm selling to you? Reuben, Shimon, Levi, and Yehuda. All right, it's as good as long as Reuben, Shimon, Levi, and Yehuda own that field. It can get complicated. But let's take a simple case like that. Now, the Gemara is going to give us various cases, and you look at the diagrams in Rashbam, already you're getting scared. So take a look from the top of the page. Meitzer, the last word in the line. Meitzer echad aruch meitzer echad kotzer. What do we mean by that? He said on one side, now look at the first diagram in Rashbam. On one side, he showed the bottom. You see the bottom line? The long line. He says, okay, that's one border. And then he said the other border is on top, but he only had half of that. In other words, he's talking about the horizontal line at the first diagram in Rashbam. The horizontal line at the bottom, he says, okay, that's one border. And then when he listed the other border at the top of the page, again, the sides were all there. The three sides, west, let's call it, on the left, on the right, and on the bottom, he delineated those. But on the top, he only had half a line there, a short line. So what is he selling him? What is he selling him? So he says, Meitzel or Meitzer Echad, one long, the one at the bottom, Meitzer Echad Kasser, one short. Rav says, Lo Kona Ela Keneged HaKatzer. He only acquires the shorter one, meaning he only acquires the right half of that square. If you look at the whole square in the first diagram, he only gets the right, all he's selling him is the right half. Why? Because he didn't say the whole top part, he only listed half. So he says that's all he gets. Amrulay Rav Asi said, wait a minute. Why? So you see the line in the middle of the square, that's the imaginary line that he says, okay, that's your border. That's what I'm selling you. I'm selling you the right half of that square. So Rav Asi said to Rav, why do you cut that imaginary line down? In other words, the boundary that you're drawing, why do you draw it that way? Why don't you draw it like in the next 2 diagrams where you get half? In other words, not half, where you draw a line at an angle, not draw the imaginary line straight down from the short top to the bottom long one, but draw it at an angle. In other words, he said one border, I'm giving you 3 long borders, right? On the left, on the right, and at the bottom. And at the top, I only gave you this half. So how do you know that he's only giving him the right half? Maybe he's giving him more than that. The side, like in the second diagram, where you drew the line this way, he calls it Rosh Tur, meaning like the head of an ox. It's like a rectangle. It's like at an angle. It's not a straight thing. So maybe he's giving him more. Shasik Rav. Rav didn't give an answer to that. As if Rav said he agreed. Quiet, usually shtik kodov. He was moda. But the Rashbam explains it this way. The Rashbam, before the lines get wide, right even with that second diagram, right even with the second Rashbam says, Umoda Rav, yes, Rav agreed with them. You're right. If he listed the 3 sides and the tops, the left, right, and bottom, and the top he only lists half, he doesn't just get half, he gets more than half. He gets like that. More than half, a little bit more than the half. One border, the right border, the left border, the top border. But on the top one, he only listed half. So do you say you give him actually half of the square, or a little bit more than that, like in the second diagram? But Rav himself is moda, even before, so apparently he's moda to the whole thing. But he says, Rav Reuven of Shimon Michad Gisa. Let's say you have this. In other words, now look at the third diagram on the page, right? the way they describe it in Rashbam, it's not so clear. Rosh Tur means he's going on the second diagram. On the third diagram, he says, look, Reuben and Shimon own have on the top line. Reuben and Shimon, let's say, own each half of property on that border. Reuben owns half the border there. Shimon owns it, meaning Reuben's property borders on the right side at the top, and Shimon's at the bottom. And Rashbam doesn't hold it in here, but he says, and at the bottom you have Levi and Yehuda. In other words, there's no discussion about the sides. We know what the sides are. The sides have definitive borders. One side, number one and number two, those are clear borders. But at the top, Reuben and Shimon each own half of that land, and at the bottom, Levi and Yehuda. So he says like this back in the Gemara: Reuben and Shimon mechad gisa. Reuben and Shimon are on one side. In our diagram here, number 3, in the third diagram, Reuben and Shimon are at the top. Umeitzer Levi Yehuda mechad gisa, and Levi and Yehuda are at the bottom. Since he should have written the Reuben connected, if he only wanted to sell him half, think about it. Pretend that Levi and Yehuda are at the bottom, right? You see where it says in the diagram Reuben and Shimon, and presume that Reuben borders the top right side, and Shimon borders the top left side, and at the bottom Levi would border the bottom right side, and Yehuda would border the bottom left side. Okay, he says, since you should have written Reuben opposite Levi, and he didn't. I'm giving you the field that borders on the right and left, that's clear. But he should have written Reuben opposite Levi, but he didn't. He said, he didn't say that. Since you should have written Reuben Keneged Levi, Rashbam takes out of Shimon Keneged Yehuda, he's mixing up two different gears. Below Kosovay, Shema Mina Keneged Rosh Huda Amalei. In other words, Rav, even before he was Moda to Rav Kana and Rav Asi, at the end he was Moda, that in all cases he gets the Rosh Tur, he gets like the second diagram. But even before that, he was Moda, that if you had Reuben and Shimon bordering the top and Levi and Yehuda bordering in the bottom, and he only wanted to sell him half, like the right half of the square, he should have said, I'm selling you the field that borders with Reuben and Levi. But he didn't say Levi. He didn't say that. Since he didn't say that, he just said Reuben and Shimon on one side and Yehuda's on the other side. That's pretty clear. If Levi's on the right side at the bottom and Yehuda's on the left side at the bottom, and he wrote Reuben and the field that borders with Reuben, Shimon, and Yehuda, that's pretty clear that he's selling him the Rosh Tur. Meaning he's not selling him half of the square, but he's selling him more than that, including the angled line. That would be the border. Now let's say we're going down to the fourth diagram in Rashbam, a little bit below. Now look at that square, that field. Reuben has two fields on either side of that square, right? Top and bottom. And Shimon has fields on the right and the left, right? Pretty clear, right? Is that obvious? Right? That picture is pretty clear. Are you with me? Everybody with me? Look, we're looking at the fourth diagram now. Reuben has a field on the top and at the bottom. Shimon has a field on the right and the left, two separate fields. And now, if he wants to sell them, let's say person number one is selling to person number two the whole field. How does he describe that field? How does he describe it? So, Meitza Reuben Mizrach Marv. Reuben is on the east and the west. In our case, it's the top and the bottom. Umeitzu Shimon, Savan Raven, Shimon's on the north and south, meaning on the right and left. He has to say, Meitza Reuben Ruchentrain, I'm selling you, listen very clearly, he says, I'm selling you the field that Reuben has two borders on, and Umeitzu Shimon Ruchentrain, and Shimon has two borders on. Because if he only says, I'm selling you the field that borders on Reuben and Shimon's land, maybe he's selling him only like a rectangle, a triangle, half of the right or half of the left, right? With that border in the middle there, right? The border coming down like the hypotenuse of that square. If he says, I'm selling you the field that borders with Reuben and Shimon, didn't say the number of square meters, he didn't say, which street it's on, he just, I'm selling you the field that borders on Reuben and Shimon's land. So maybe he's selling him either the one on the upper right-hand side or the lower left-hand side. How do you know he's selling the whole square? So in order to be clear, you got to be as clear as possible. Again, given the restrictions or the limitations, not the restrictions, the limitations that they had in those days. They didn't have common registries, they didn't have street names, et cetera, et cetera. I tried once to find my grandfather's property in Poland, and these lawyers were getting it. And what happened? The whole streets, there's no street like that anymore. They redid the whole thing. You got to pay a specialist in maps and do all that. And at the end, you'll get about 20 shekels for the whole thing after you spend thousands of dollars on lawyers. The streets aren't even the same anymore. It happens in a lot of places. They change the whole thing. So it's hard to, you have limitations. You got to be as clear as you can. Okay, next case. Iboilu, 2 lines from the bottom of the page of the Gemara. Iboilu, Saimlo esakonos mao. What happens if you listen? Now we're at the 5th diagram on that page. You see the one that has a lot of black in it. In my Gemara, it's a lot of black with an X in the middle. What do we mean there? He said, look, there are a lot of people who have fields all around here. A lot of people have fields all around here. And he marked only, he says, you know what? One corner is borders on a field that Reuben has. And another corner borders on a field that Shimon has. And another corner borders on the field Levi has. And Yehuda, and another corner borders on the field that Yehuda has. There might be other people there too. Maybe they're all 12 tribes all around it. Other people have fields there too. When he listed only the corners, what was he selling them? Do you say that, well, he was listing the 4 corners of a square field, so everything is included in there? Or no, maybe he only meant to include those corners, meaning the X. X marks the spot. Maybe the white X. You have it in white in your Gemara. I don't know if it's in my Gemara. It's mostly blacked out in that square, and then there's that X in white, right? You see that? You have it that way. So it says maybe he's only selling him X. I'm selling you from this corner to this corner and this corner to this corner. Maybe that's all he's selling him. Not so clear, Mao. Or kamin gam. The last 3 words on the page in the Gemara. Kamin gam. Gam is a Greek letter, which is similar, Rashbam says, to archaf, or you could look like a resh, meaning, now look at the diagram on the left, opposite there to the left of the one with the X. Look in there. Okay, now this has a different advantage because he sold them he mentioned the 2 corners, the upper right hand corner, the lower left hand corner. You see that? You with me? Lower left hand corner. But he also stretched it out a little bit. He didn't just say the corner. He actually went into each side, right? You see, the upper right hand resh or gam, whatever you call that, it stretches a little bit on the top of the square, and the other part of the resh rests on the right side, and similarly the one in the lower left hand. So here it's not just a corner that's marked; it's actually part of the sides too. So what do you say there? Did he mean there now to sell him the whole field, or do you say not just the whole field, or do you say he only sold him like the bottom diagram? What do you mean by the bottom diagram in the Rashbam? Not looking at Tosas. The one on the Rashbam, meaning he listed those 2 reshes or gams, and he sold them the hypotenuse between those 2. You see, maybe that's all he meant to sell them. Do you make? Okay, these are questions. If he listed only the first question with the black one was, he only listed the 4 corners. So what did he mean to say? Did he mean to say everything included within those 4 corners, that square? Or maybe just sent them a line from one angle from the upper right to the lower left, and from the upper left to the lower right? Or if he said maybe the gams, the second diagram from the bottom of the page in Rashbam on the left, with the 2 ratios like in the upper right and the lower left, does that mean to include more? Or maybe he only meant to say, I'm including the bottom diagram. Of course, he shows it upside down, but not the way, it's not a similar thing, but to show that he's only selling him the hypotenuse there. Maybe that's all he meant to sell. It's not so clear. You better be clear. That's why they got lawyers today. The Sirugan Mahu. Now we're on a base. What about this question? All these questions take me. You see, Stam. Sirugan means this. Now look at the first diagram on Ahmed base. Right, what do you have over there? Take a look. Take a look at the names all around that square. Reuben, Shimon, Levi, Yehuda, Yisachar, Zvulun, Yosef, and Yamin. They all owned different pieces of land. Now, again, we're talking about selling the square in the middle. And we're talking about the borders of those sections. In other words, there were 8 borders. 8 different people owned the land surrounding that square. Reuben, Shimon, Levi, Yehuda, etc. They all own. And now, what did he say? He said the proper way to sell it been, listen, I'm selling you a square of land that's bordered by Reuben, Shimon, Levi, Yehuda, Yisachar, Zvulun, Yosef, and Yam. That would have been a right thing to do. But let's say he said only, I'm selling you a field that borders on one side by Reuben, one side by Levi, that's on the left, one side by Zvulun, one side by Yosef. He didn't list them all. He listed only 4 of the owners. He skipped, he listed the 1st, 3rd, 5th, and 7th owners. So what did he sell him? Did he sell him the whole thing? Or maybe he only sold him all those triangles by saying Reuven, right? And not saying Shimon, maybe only sold him that piece. Why is that? And why is it split this way? Because you have other owners on all the sides. So what did he sell him? Did he sell him 4 triangles in middle there? Or did he sell him the whole thing? All these questions stand because they're not clear. Now listen to this one. Now we get to the toughest one. Let's say he listed 3 sides, 1, 2, 3. Meitzer lo, Meitzer Rishon, Meitzer Sheni, Meitzer Shlish. Listed 3 sides. Meitzer Vilo, Meitzer lo. He didn't list the 4th side. He said the first side is owned by, let's say, number 1. The second side, I'm selling you a piece of land which is bordered on one side by Mr. 1. There's on second by Mr. 2. Let's go call Reuven Shimon. Reuven's on one side. His property borders on one side. Shimon's property borders on the bottom, let's say. Levi's property borders on the left side. And he didn't mention what borders on the top. He didn't mention Yehud at all. So what's the halacha there? 3-way machlokas. Amarav in the 3rd line of the Gemara. Kanakol. He gets everything. Chutz mi Meitzer V, except for the 4th side, meaning the one strip of land, one furrow as he calls it, one strip of land on the 4th side he doesn't get. In other words, what did he mean to say? If you look at the second diagram, the second and third diagrams, they're slightly different as we'll see in a second. But the idea is this: that he listed the right side, the left side, and the bottom. He didn't list the top. So what does he get? Rav says you get everything. You get everything inside that square. The square is not squared off. All you have is like a ches at the bottom, right? So you don't have the top part. So what do you get? What did he mean to sell him? He meant to sell him all 3 sides and what's in the middle. That's what Rav says. Rav says, except for the strip on the top side. In other words, the strip on the top side he didn't sell him. Shmuel Amar, kana. Shmuel says even the top one, he gets the whole thing. The girsa is an out. Yeah. In other words, Shmuel says he gets everything. He listed 1, 2, 3. Obviously, the 4th one comes across there. He gets everything. So Shmuel says, "Afilu meitzer revi kana." Rav Asi Amar lo kana ela tlem echad al pnei kula al kula. You know what you get? You only get the 3 sides. You didn't get the middle. In other words, according to Rav Asi, you only get a ches. He doesn't get the whole thing in the middle because the fact that he left out the 4th side meant to say you're only getting 3 sides, meaning you're only getting the sides. You're not getting what's in the middle. Now, Rav Asi is the most machmer over here from the Otef's point of view, from the seller's point of view. He's giving him very little. I'm giving you 3 sides of a field, but you're not getting the field. Rav Asi Amar lo kana el pnei echad al pnei kula. You're only getting one furrow or one strip on like the ches. You're only getting the upside down ches, and you're not getting what's in the middle. Now, why does he say that? Sava like Rav, he holds like Rav in one respect. Rav Asi holds like Rav Amar Shiur Mishayrei. He doesn't sell everything. Why didn't he list all 4 sides? Just say you're selling a field. If he meant to sell him everything, say it borders on Reuben, Shimon, Levi, and Yehuda's field. That's what you're getting. Since he didn't say that, he meant to save some stuff for himself. I'm not selling you everything. But Rav says I'm selling you everything except for the 4th side, except for the strip on the top. That's what Rav said. Rav Asi says, I hold like him like Rav that I kept something myself. Since I'm leaving over something on the border, I'm also leaving something over on the whole field. In other words, I'm only selling you the sides. That's what he meant to do. So if 3-way machlokas, what do you do in a case like that? When he listed side, the right side, Reuben, the left side, let's say, or the right side, Reuben, the bottom, Shimon, the left side, Levi, and the top he didn't mention. What's the halacha? Amarav. Rav, of course, was the later Amaram, passing like Rav. So he says, we're going to see. We passing like Rav, but there's 2 verses of what Rav said. Listen carefully. Amarav. You get everything except for the 4th side, like Rav, right? That was Rav, the first opinion. But he says, that's only, listen carefully. Now look at the 2 pictures in the second and third diagrams on the page, which are right next to each other. That's only, this said you don't get the 4th side, is only if it's not within. If it's not within, you see, on the left diagram there says, okay, you have the ches. And the 4th one, when he listed, in other words, Reuben's on the right, Shimon's on the bottom, Levi's on the left, okay? and their fields only go up to here, only go up to the strip of land that we're talking about, that fourth border, which is only a strip of land. If it's not included, you don't get that. In other words, like Rav says, you get the 3 sides and everything included in there, but you don't get that strip at the top. Avol mivla. But now look at the right picture, the diagram on the right. Let's say the border of Reuven on the right and Levi on the left goes all the way up there. Goes all the way up there to that 4th side. If that's included, in other words, if the 4th side is that piece is included in the borders of Reuven, again, depends on what they owned. Did Reuven and Levi own all the way up to that 4th side, including that 4th side, or they only up into not including? So he says that if what? Again, Rav says like this in the Gemara, like Rav, that's only if the 4th side is not swallowed up or is not within the 2 sides of Reuven and Levi, the way we described it, the right and the left. Avol mivla, but if it's included, like in the right side, in the right diagram there, Avol mivla kana, then he acquires that too. Even though Rav said you don't get the 4th side, that's only if it's not included in the right side and the left side. But if it's included, if that piece of land goes into Reuven and Levi's land, then it's included. Even if it's not included, like on the left diagram, when is it not included? When is it not included? Only if that 4th strip, the strip at the top, has either a row of trees or have a tisha kavan. Tisha kavan, we learned before, is considered a significant piece of land. Can you plant 9 measures of seed? If there's enough land to plant 9 measures of seed in the normal way, then it's considered a significant piece of land. If there's not enough land there to plant 9 kavan of seed, then it's not considered a significant piece of land. So he says, listen, even this that I said, that if it's not included, if it's not within the borders, again, the picture on the left, if it's not included, you don't get that 4th strip. You don't get the strip at the top. That's only if that piece of land is significant in the sense that it has a row of trees there, or it has enough land there to plant 9 kav of seeds. But if there's no row of trees there, below and it's not big enough to plant, that it's not significant. Let's call it not significant. Then you acquire that 4th one, like Shmuel said, even if it's not included, like on the one on the left. If it's included, like on the right, even if it has some significant piece of land, but if it's included, it's got either a row of trees or it's got enough land to plant their 9 kavsis, then a kana. So Rava here in this shita is more makel. He goes like Rav that you don't include the strip, you don't get the strip, but that's only if the strip is not within the border. But if it's within the borders of the right and the left, then it's included. Right? Then it's included. And even if it's not included, that's only if it's a significant piece of land. But if it's not a significant piece of land, then even if it's mechlal d'chim muvla, if it's swallowed, even though it's a significant piece of land, you get it anyway. In other words, he says you only don't get it if it's not within the right and the left. But if it's within the right and the left, then you get it. And even if it's not within the right and the left, you don't get it only if it's significant. But if it's not significant, then you get it anyway, even if it's not swallowed up, if it's not within the right and the left. That's how Rava says in the first year. So in the first rush, economics, some say I'm Rava differently. Here he's more machmer. You get the whole thing. This sounds like Shmuel, but he says, "But that's only here. He's qualifying it. That's only if it's like the right diagram, where the strip at the top is included, is within the right and the left borders. But if it's not swallowed up, you don't get it. Even if it is within there, that's only if it's not significant. But if it's significant, it's got a row of trees or a tishus kaf enough to plant there, you don't get it, even if it's within. Again, so he's saying, Rabbi says, yeah, you get the whole thing and the 4th side, but that's only if it's within. And even if it's within, that's only if it's not significant. If it's not included, so here it's more machmas for him that if it's not within them, that even if it's not significant, you still don't get it. So Shamina Tavai, what's the common denominator between these two gears of Rava? And we pass like Rava, says Rashbam, Halacha Kamoso. Shamina Mitavayu, Mitavayu from two lashons of Rava, the Besada Lo Shaiv Lamidi. Number one, you see, because in both cases, he doesn't say like Ravasi, he says that, you know what, in both cases, he doesn't leave anything for himself. He really sells the whole field, right? Both the first and the second gears of Rav hold that either like it's really like an interpretation of Rav and Shmuel that you get the whole field. In terms of the field, you get everything. The Besada Lo Shai Lamidi, not like Ravasi. That's clear, according to either gears of Rav. The Shamina Nami, you also see the Mivla, and Kana. Both gears agree that if it's within, again, like the right diagram, if the fourth side is within the right and the left properties, if it's within them, and it's not significant property, you definitely Kona either way. Both of the gears say that. Where it's swallowed up and there's no, if it's within, the fourth side, the top side, is within the right and the left side. If it's within the right and the left side, even if it's not significant, and it's not significant, everybody says you acquired. Lo mivla if it's not included, like the left diagram, it's the fourth side is not included, and it's significant, everybody agrees lo kana. What's the machlokas between the first gears and the second gears? So mivla, if it's within, but they're significant to it, the ekoleh, right? In that case, the first girsa says it's included, and the second girsa not. Lo mivla v'leka aleh, and or if it's not within lo mivla, and there is no significant in malahagi. So the first girsa of Rava says you do acquire, the purchaser gets it. And the second one girsa says no, that you don't get it. In other words, the second one is more machmer in terms of the purchaser, and therefore shoot at the dine. It's up to the judge to decide. It's his discretion what you meant. In other words, we pass like Rava, but there's two girsas in Rava. Both girsas of Rava again say what? That what he gets, the field itself he gets, right? Both of them say Shamin Tavayo Lishnei Rava, that he gets the whole field. And you also see that where the fourth side, the top side, is within the right and the left, and it's not significant, everybody agrees you're kona. And if it's not included, it's not within the borders of one and two, of the right and the left, and it's significant, everybody agrees you don't get it. The machlokas is if it's within the borders but it's significant, or right, or if it's not within the borders and it's not significant. Rava, the first gears of Rava says you get it. The second gears of Rava says you don't get it. And therefore, it's up to the judge to decide. At the two dots, about 10 lines from the bottom of the page now in the Gemara. Amar Rava. At least there's no more diagrams now. Amar Rava. A man says, but now you go to a man, Reuben and Shimon own a field together. They each own half, right? Well, of course, Shimon, meaning they each own the whole thing with the ability to get half when it's sold. So what happens is Reuben is selling his half. But he said, listen to the Lashon carefully. Amar Rava. Palga de Isli Ba'ara, Palga. He says, listen, I'm selling you the half that I have. I have half of this land. Reuben and Shimon own it together. And Reuben decides to sell it to Yanko, and he says, I'm selling you the half that I have, that I own. What did he sell him? The whole half. I'm selling you the half that I have. Palga de Isli Ba'ara, the half that I have in this land, and he gets Palga. Palga Ba'ara de Isli, let's say he sells and says, I'm selling you half of the land that I have here. I only own half the land. I'm Reuben and Shimon, right? If Reuben is about to sell his half. If he says, I'm selling you the half that I own, sold him the whole half. Let's say he says, I'm selling you half of what I own here. What did he sell him there? A quarter. I'm selling you half of what I have. Half of what I have. I only have a half, so I'm selling you a quarter. Again, Amarava Palga de Isli Ba'ara Palga. Palga Ba'ara de Isli, half of the land that I own. He only gets a quarter. What's the difference? Isn't he saying the same thing? I'm selling you the whole half. He's the ishtik. So here, Rabba, his Rebbe, the master, the teacher of Abaye, didn't say anything. He was quiet. Now, on Amar Aleph, we had, when he was quiet, that he was moted him effectively. Here, Amar Abaye says, I said that since he was quiet, my Rebbe, Kabula Kabli, he accepted what I said. Either way, he should get the whole half. Below right? Rashbam says, what's the difference? He sold him half either way. I thought that he's moted to me. So I thought he's moted to me. But then I found in his papers from like, court documents from Rabba's court. I saw some documents that went out of Rabba's court, from his sheep from his court. This is what it says. Palga de isli ba'ara palga. Half of the land. I'm selling you the half that I have in this land, the half that I own in this land. Then he's selling him the whole half. Palga ba'ara de isli. Half of the land that I own, I only own half. So I'm selling you half of that. I'm selling you a quarter. Then it's a quarter. It's clear. It's how you say it. Am I selling you the half that I own, or am I selling you half of what I have? That's only a quarter. Amarava, another complicated case. Meitzer Ara, I'm selling you a piece of land. What's the border of the land? Meitzer Ara Demina Pliga. I'm selling you half of this land. Okay, that one side is owned by Reuben. That's how that borders on one side. But what am I selling you? I'm selling you a land that borders on half of this if I split this land. In other words, I'm keeping half for myself. So I'm selling you a piece of land. Meser Ara, what's the border of the land? Dimina Pliga, from which I could split this. I could take half. Then he gets half. He gets half. In other words, I'm selling this piece of land. It borders over there on Reuben's side. This side is my side. What am I selling you? I'm selling you a land. It borders on what I could split it. So I'm only selling you half of that. Meser Ara Dimina Psika. If I sell you a piece of land, and what's the border of that land? A land that I could cut off a piece, that I could cut off a strip or a piece. Then all I get is I'm selling you is a piece of land that's rotwy, that's fit to work, meaning it's enough that you can plant Teshakav and you can plant nine. So I'm only Abaya. So Abaya again said to Rabbah, my shnach. What's the difference between them? In both cases, you should give him half. In other words, he's saying, what's the difference? Mashma, last one, Rashbam on the page, Mashma Sada, real Lipsok Mikarka, Acheres, piece of land that I could cut off from another one. That's what he said, Tishakavan. So what's the difference between the two? Submina, EDV Palga, my Shach Meshara, Submin, I figured EDV Palga. That again, Rabba was quiet. So I figured that each one, whether I said, I'm selling you a piece of land from which, what's the border? The border is where I could cut off a piece of the land. So if he said, whether he said half of the land, Mesa Ara Domino, that I could pliga, that I could split it in half, I'm giving you half there, or whether I said I can cut off a piece, either way it should be half. I thought each of them should have below it. Not true. The Gemara is saying below it. Why? I heard from Abai. In other words, it's not Abai saying it now. Abai said, what's the difference between the two? Both ones should be half. So he figured. So the Gemara felt that that each one is that in both cases Abai meant to say it should be half, and Rabba maybe was motive, but that's not the case. I heard from Abaye, Ben Meitzer Ara Demina Palga. Whether he said the border of the land that I'm giving you, in other words, on one side it's Reuben's, on the other side, what's the border? The border is where it's fit to split it. So if he said Demina Palga, that I'm splitting it, or Ben Meitzer Ara Demina Psika, or whether it's or the border is where it's fit to cut off a piece. Either way, he should get half. Except Alain Matzarna Palga. If he said this is the border, if he added on the extra words, this border is half, right? If Matzarna Palga, then he gets half. If he didn't say those words, I'm doing half, then all he gets is Tishakav. In other words, however he said it, whether he said a piece of the border is a piece of land that's roy to be split, or whether a piece of land that's roy to be cut off from there. If he said Alain Matzarna, if he said this is the border, by saying those extra words, what are the words? He didn't say that, but by emphasizing the extra words Alain Matzarna, then he gets half. If he didn't emphasize those words, if he said this is the border, then he meant to emphasize you're getting a full half. He didn't say that. All you get is a middle amount. Rashbam says even though the words don't mean much, the words Matzana, but if he mentioned these are the borders, makes a mizrach ara demino palga, demino palga, makes a mar ploni v'chein holach v'choshev kol mitzram v'hilkach yamalei. If he listed all the borders from in Matzarna, these are the that's a yitur lashon. Rashbam says alei Matzarna is it's an extra words liapos koko. Either way, I'm cutting off, I'm splitting it, or I'm cutting off a piece. And sometimes you get half, bang palga, bang psika, whatever you said. he said, these are the borders. On one side is Reuben, and one side's here, and this is the border. That means to say you're getting half. If he didn't say Eloi Matzarna, if he didn't say these are the borders, then he only gets Tisha Kava. So pays to be very specific, or else you're going to wind up with trouble. All right, we'll pick him here tomorrow, Mr. Yeah. Yeah. They could have had fences, but let's assume there was a fence there. And we knew where Reuben, Shimon, and Levi were, the borders around that. And we knew where the top one was, right? But he wasn't clear about that. Maybe you're getting it with the fence. Maybe you're getting whatever. You're getting his piece of land there too. It's not clear what you're selling, right? If you didn't know where Reuben and Shimon and Levi's borders were, if you didn't have a fence there, then it would really be a problem. Some of you knew where they were, but what are you selling? That's the issue here. Have a good day, everybody. Hopefully.